Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's English file lesson. My name is Karabo C. Day. We are going to deal with the literature. The topic of the day is Cry the Beloved Country. What we are going to focus on this afternoon is Book 1 analysis. Our objectives this afternoon is to understand the plot of Book 1. And what do I mean by plot? Plot is the storyline. Furthermore, we are going to examine the setting and its significance in the story. Setting, very important. Where the story takes place and when is our key features. We are also going to analyze the main characters and their roles in the story. We are going to discuss the tone and figures of speech used by Ellen Patton in Cry the Beloved Country, and also discuss the central themes of the book. Lastly, we are going to engage with open-ended questions to deepen our comprehension or our understanding. Basic literary terms that we have to know, that I know you already know, is what is a character. That is your understanding of what a character is in the story. You know what characters are? The setting, I know all of you now, you know what that setting refers to what? To time as well as place. You already know, your teachers have already taught you what tone is, or how to recognize tone as used by different characters and their attitudes. Theme. When we refer to theme, we're talking of the message of the book or of a literary work, and that forms the central idea of the book. I know you know your figures of speech, you know what a simile is, you know what a metaphor is, and what personification is. You are familiar with these terms. The historical context and the social context of Cry the Beloved Country is important. How important is this? The historical context is that we lived in yesteryears under the apartheid system in South Africa, which is racial segregation during the 1940s up until 1994. Urbanization, you understand that a lot of us moved from the rural areas to urban areas, from the villages in the deep rural area, and the understanding that now most of you live in the urban areas or the cities as we know them, and the challenges that we go through in the cities. Your comprehension skills are very important. Your ability to pick out important information from text, comprehending, your understanding, your ability to comprehend things, to understand key details, and you are able to identify those, and you are able to make inferences. That is, you can draw conclusions based on evidence in the text. You are not just a passive reader, but you read with understanding, you make inferences, you draw conclusions, you identify details, and you also analyze the text. That is, you are able to break down a passage to understand its deeper meaning and implications. From your experience in the grade 12 class, you know that we don't only read for enjoyment, but we read for deeper meaning and understanding and the implications on what the book is all about. That's our focus, that you are able to analyze the text and you use critical thinking to discuss issues in the book. At some point, we want you as an active reader to express your opinion, to share personal views, to be able to support characters with evidence. If you feel pity for Absalom, if you feel angry, you are angry at Stephen Kumal or John Kumal. So we draw on your opinion. You are able to express your opinion because you are an active participant in this study of Cry the Beloved Country or any other literary genre. You will then engage in discussion. Your ability to respond on open-ended questions and open-ended discussion. You are not just a passive reader. Now I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Rather, I'm going to give you a minute. Look at this to answer the following questions. What is the main setting of Cry the Beloved Country? Is it New York? Is it Johannesburg in South Africa? Is it London? Is it Paris? I repeat, what is the main setting, the overall setting of Cry the Beloved Country? Does this story happen in New York? Does it happen in Johannesburg? In London? In Paris? Who is the protagonist of the novel? Protagonist. Is the protagonist James Javeth, John Kumalo, Stephen Kumalo, or Absalom Kumalo? I repeat, who is the protagonist of the novel? James Jarvis, John Khumalo, Stephen Khumalo, Absalom Khumalo. Third question. I'm sure you have answered the two questions already. Now, with regard to tone, what tone is primarily used in the provided text, extract, or story? Is it joyful, anxious, angry, indifferent? Can you describe the relationship between Stephen Khumalo and John Khumalo? Do their values differ? I'm going to repeat. Describe the relationship between Stephen Khumalo and John Khumalo. How do their values differ? Ready? Now, let's see the solutions. You've answered briefly, isn't it? Yes. What is the main setting of Cry the Beloved Country? Yes, Tom? Of course, it's Johannesburg in South Africa. You are correct. Who is the protagonist of the novel? Stephen Khumalo. Correct, Tembi. It's Stephen Khumalo. You are correct. The protagonist of the novel is Stephen Khumalo. What tone is primarily used in the story, in the novel? Most of the time, we have anxiety. It's anxious. Though we have different tones, but as we begin, at the beginning of the story, there is some form of anxiety which is written all over in the story. Now, I want you to describe the relationship between Stephen Khumalo and John Khumalo. How do their values differ? Stephen Khumalo and John Khumalo have a strained relationship. That's correct, Tebogo. They have a strained relationship. Stephen is humble and he is a compassionate pastor. While John, on the other side, is what? Charismatic and ambitious political activist. The question about their values. How do their values differ? Their values differ significantly, with Stephen focusing on spiritual and moral integrity. Remember, he is a pastor, isn't it? He's a pastor. He's calm. He's humble. He checks on his morals. While on the other side, John is charismatic. He's ambitious. He's prioritizing political as well as economic power, isn't it? Which is a vast contrast with what Stephen is about. Yes, God is correct. Right. The terminology used in the story, in the book. You probably have got to know words like apartheid. And what is apartheid? It's a policy or system of segregation or discrimination on grounds of race, which was implemented in 1948 to 1994 in South Africa. Segregation, you have heard words like segregation, and I expect you grade 12 to visit your dictionaries so that you become familiar with these words. Segregation, what is the definition of segregation? It is the enforced separation of different racial, ethnic, or social groups within a community or institution or country. This can occur through laws or social practices. We have a big word there, reconciliation. The definition is coming together, the process of restoring friendly relations and resolving differences between conflicting parties. In a broader sense, it involves addressing past injustices and working towards mutual understanding and harmony. Redemption. Our book is not only political, it has also some religion in it. And then we speak of sin. And when we have sinned, we come to God in what? In redemption, in forgiveness of sin, and in getting redemption. The act of being saved from sin, error, or evil. In the literary context, it often refers to a character's journey towards forgiveness, atonement, or moral improvement. There are characters in the book who undergo redemption and who grow, and there are those who remain stuck in their sin, like who? Yes, you are correct, like John Kumar. Protagonist. We referred to Stephen Kumalo as the protagonist. Did you check as I was talking what a protagonist is? A protagonist is the main character in a story, a novel, or play around whom the events of the story revolves. The protagonist is often the hero or the central figure who faces challenges and undergoes personal growth. Stephen Kumalo is such a character, isn't it? He's the main character in the story. He is our hero, and he develops, he grows through the process. He gets challenges and he overcomes those challenges, and there is some form of personal growth in his life. And we have an antagonist. Antagonist is a character of force that opposes the protagonist and creates conflict in the story. The antagonist can be a person or a group or an abstract such as societal norms or internal struggles. Here is definite. Our protagonist is Stephen Kumalo, while the antagonist is the system of apartheid. That is the system that bedevils the community of that bedevils the black community in the book Cry the Beloved Country. Our plot, our story rests on the why, the events that are happening and the connections between them. There's something that is happening, and we are asking ourselves, why is this happening? And then what is the connection between what has happened and that? And that is what the plot seeks to answer. We have our phrase tag there. With the phrase tag, in our story, we look at the exposition, the rising action, the climax at the top, the falling action, and the denouement, which is our conclusion. Let's start with the exposition. Exposition is at the start or the beginning of the story. What happens at the beginning? We have a Christian priest named Stephen Khumalo, who lives with the wife where? In Ndocheni, a village in the Eastern Cape. All of his family members. Who are these family members? We have Gertrude, we have Absalom, and John moving into the big city of Johannesburg, and they all disappear like a mist. His brother, his sister, his brother, and his only son. So we have Gertrude there. We have John Khumalo there. And then we have his only son, Absalom. And they disappear in the big city of Johannesburg. When he is in a sad mode and forgotten that these people will ever come home, he receives, that is Stephen Khumalo, receives a letter from a priest, a fellow priest in Johannesburg named who? Msimang. Msimang asked John to do what? To come quickly to Johannesburg because his sister Gertrude is not well, is sick. Therefore, Stephen Khumalo must rush to Johannesburg. That is our exposition. The rising action. The rising action, Khumalo makes the journey to Johannesburg and is welcomed by Msimang, the priest who sent the letter. Msimang tells Khumalo that Gertrude is not sick, physically sick, but there is some sickness that is on her. And what is that sickness? That she is a prostitute. And she is also selling moonshine. And what is moonshine? Moonshine is brewed alcohol that Gertrude is giving to customers. She's selling herself, she's selling moonshine, and in the process, she is neglecting her son, her young child, her little boy. And this is the sickness that prompted Msimang to do what? To write a letter to call Stephen Khumalo to quickly come to Johannesburg to help the sick sister. Khumalo finds Gertrude with Mr. Mang's help. They go about in the township and then they find her. Gertrude, what does she do in turn? She wants redemption. She asked for what? She asked for forgiveness. And say, I am sorry. I have sinned. And can you forgive me? And I'm ready to go back home with you. She promises to go back to Ndocheni with the brother. Khumalo sets out to meet John Khumalo, his brother, who is a shopkeeper and a politician. In our baseline, what did we check? That the two men are different in values. So Khumalo sets out to find John Khumalo. Of course, John is an opportunist. He takes advantage of people's frustrations to get power and attention for himself. He's a politician through and through. John gives directions to Stephen Khumalo about Absalom's whereabouts. The main focus for him to come to Johannesburg was to look for or to look out to the sick Gertrude. Then he goes and look for John as well as for Absalom. That's natural, isn't it? And somebody also says, when you go to Johannesburg, please don't forget my daughter. And who's that one? Sibeko's daughter is also, Stephen Khumalo is also tasked to look for Sibeko's daughter. Climax, at the top now. When Stephen Khumalo now goes to Shantytown, Alexander, to look for Absalom, Shantytown, that will be your Alex, to look for Absalom. Khumalo's son has fallen in with a bad crowd. That's what he learns now. Absalom have started stealing. Not only stealing, impregnated a girl. And finally, the search ends where they find Absalom in prison. What did Absalom do? Why is he in prison? Did he steal? Is it because of the pregnant girl? No. Not that. He has killed or murdered Arthur Jarvis. So he is waiting trial because he has killed Arthur Jarvis. Arthur Jarvis, who is James Jarvis's son, and they happen to be relatives back home, not relatives, neighbors. I'm sorry about that. Neighbors back home in Ndocheni. Up the mountain, and next to Ndocheni, there is a farm of Jarvis. He knows that it means death penalty, and there is no chance anymore to restore his family. There is no chance to restore his family because the son is going to be sentenced to death. As he goes through the journey of interacting with the son, he becomes sympathetic and understanding of his son. The following action or the resolution is Gertrude now. Our Gertrude, the sick Gertrude, finds a way to do what? To escape. She abandons her child. She's been neglecting the child for long now. So she gets an escape route, leaves the child with her brother, Stephen Kumalo, and she runs away. After she said she wanted to be a nun, when she told Mrs. Ditebe, and she said, I want to be a nun. I want redemption. She runs away. John remains steadfast, refuses to apologize. So there is no steadfast in his ways. Can you see that the two do not grow? That is Gertrude and John. They remain stagnant characters here. They refuse to grow. Kumalo returns home with Gertrude's son and Absalom's wife. And that is a form of consolation. Much as we have lost our son to Johannesburg, he has murdered a person, he is going to be hanged, but the good that came out of it is that we have Absalom's wife who is going to have a child soon, pregnant, and then also Gertrude's son, the abandoned child. So that brings some form of consolation. Absalom is sentenced to death, and to him, Kumalo meets the father's victim, the victim's father, Arthur Jarvis, and they become friends. Or they have an understanding. They have both lost their sons. One has died and the other is going to hang. Jarvis works with Kumalo to improve the conditions in the village. Absalom is hanged. Stephen Kumalo's journeys to the mountain to pray for his son. The novel ends with the dawn rising and prayer for South Africa. Now let's look at characters and characterization. What is a character? A character is any person or animal or figure represented in a literary work that you have knowledge of, isn't it? Characters are essential to the plot and can be classified into various types, such as, I've just said it to you now, as protagonist. And what is the protagonist? Someone who is the central figure in the story, a hero of our story, somebody who develops through the stages in the story, and they find some form of redemption. Antagonist is something or someone that opposes the protagonist. And we also have supporting characters. That is character. And then what is characterization? Characterization is the process by which an author reveals the personality traits and qualities of a character. And it can be done in various ways. Which ways? Let's see. We have direct characterization. The author explicitly describes the character traits. For example, she was kind and generous. That we are given, that she was kind and generous. And in the book, who's kind and generous? Mrs. Ditebe, yes. She's hospitable. She's kind and generous. She gives all these people accommodation and food. Indirect characterization. The author now shows the character traits through their actions. That's mostly what we do. We have to identify all those character traits as we read their actions, speech, thoughts, appearance, and interactions with others. We have spoken about our stick Gertrude, isn't it? You already have a form. You already have a character traits that you can give to Gertrude, abandoning the child, selling alcohol. Just make notes, because later I will ask you what those character traits are. For example, she spent a weekend volunteering at the local shelter. If a person spends time or her weekends volunteering at the local shelter, what character trait is that? Noted. You have a friend, you always tell them that we meet at such a particular time, and they miss the time. And when they get to you, the first thing is you. Have you heard? Did you hear that there was a monkey up that tree? Or they found apples in the bathtub when it opened. And you can immediately see that this person fibs, isn't it? And you call them what? Liars. They lie. Character traits are the qualities, the attributes, and characteristics that define a character. These can be physical traits, height, hair color, personality traits, their inner qualities such as kindness, bravery, or selfishness. Each time they eat something and you appear, they hide it in their bags. But they will ask you to share with them your apple, isn't it? Behavioral traits, how a character acts, such as being punctual, lazy, or meticulous. So those are character traits. A person acts in some way, and the way they act, we have words that we use to say, to analyze or to describe the person, and we call those character traits. They don't do their homework. They're always late for school, and we automatically will give them a name and say, oh, she's so lazy. Oh, she's ever late. She's not a punctual person. So those are character traits. Let's look at the roles. Stephen Khumalo, what kind of a person is Stephen Khumalo? Stephen Khumalo, we all know, is a Zulu pastor. He comes from the village of Ndochene. He is compassionate. He is humble and also deeply religious. And that is what he does every day, isn't it? Because he's a pastor. He's a man of integrity and moral strength. How do we know that? See how he took in Absalom's girlfriend as his new daughter. Throughout the novel, Khumalo undergoes significant personal growth. He starts as naive and somewhat a passive character, but becomes more assertive and aware of the social injustices around him. What is the significant role that he plays in the book? He journeys to Joburg to find his son, Absalom, who serves as the central plot of the novel. Can you see the shift? The first thing is looking for the stick sister. The shift goes to looking for Absalom, his son. And then his experiences highlight the racial injustices, family, and reconciliation. He has reconciled with Gertrude, isn't it? Only to lose her. He has reconciled with the son, only to lose him to hanging. He could not reconcile with the brother John, because the brother John is somewhat a very strange person. Reverend Stephen Kumalo, he's caring, isn't it? He loves and cherishes his family. Even though Gertrude has disgraced him twice, once for going against the Christian principles and second for leaving her son behind, Kumalo still prays for her. That shows that he is caring. And how do we know? We found it in the book. The character traits that you find and use must also be grounded in the text. Right? How the characters act. He is humble, isn't it? Very quiet, humble man with a strong faith in God. And at times, what does he do? He repents. He asks that people pray for him. But at times, he is very impatient and very aggressive. He tells lies here and there. And he erupts in anger when provoked. However, his default is to run to God and pray to God that he saves him from temptation. And he always repents. He knows very little about the world outside of his little parish. You know his drama when he got to Johannesburg, where that young man ran away or scammed him of his money. That I'm going to buy you a ticket for the bus, and the young man ran away. James Jarvis is a white landowner whose son Arthur is murdered by Absalom Kumalo. When we first meet James Jarvis, he is very distant. He is indifferent about what the black people or black South Africans are going through. But as he goes deep into his son's library, he undergoes profound transformation. He becomes emphatic, and he takes steps to improve the lives of the black community in Dochene. He learns. He grows. With his mourning and tragedy of losing a son, he develops. What is the significance of the role of Jarvis in the book? We call him an arc character. He represents the possibility of understanding and cooperation between different racial groups. He is in the middle. There is a white community on the other side, and there's a black community. He understands what his son stood for. And then he also understands what his friends, family, and other people are thinking of black people. Okay. He is also kind. He works hard to make things better for the people of the village of Ndocheni. He donates milk to the young children, and he arranges that they should have a dam built and to make the soil better remember they were going through some drought. He doesn't end there. He hires an agricultural expert to teach the farmers how to go about tilling the land. When his wife dies, he carries out a wish that a new church be built for Ndochene. He's very kind and understanding. One, he carries out his son's wishes. Two, he carries out his wife's wishes of building the church. Right. Jarvis is a man of little words. He speaks less and he acts more. And we find out that he's a changed man. Absalom Khumalo. He is troubled young man, wayward. He has a lot of drama. He ends up in a rehabilitation center. But there, what does he do? Juvenile rehabilitation center. Then he moves on. He goes with his cousin, and later he gets to kill Arthur Jarvis, and he lands himself in prison. Gertrude Khumalo, weak-willed, easily influenced, struggles with circumstances. There are signs that she wants to change, but ultimately she remains trapped by her environment, and she doesn't grow out of Johannesburg, but she does what she has to do to escape poverty, that is selling all that she was selling, and then later abandoning the child. Mr. Mom, a very young idealistic priest who is the center of the story as well. He's wise, he's compassionate, articulate, and also very concerned with social justice. He's a very supportive figure, and he offers guidance and insight to Khumalo. Stephen Khumalo wouldn't have found all this had it not been of Msima. Arthur Jarvis. He is deceased, isn't it? He's no longer alive. But his writings and legacy play a crucial role in the novel. And we see that he is a very idealistic person, very passionate, and he fights for social justice of Black people. His death serves as a turning point for his father, James Jarvis, and that inspires his community. John Khumalo, very prominent figure, a politician through and through. And at the end, he makes his son lie, and they abandon their cousin. So that's John Khumalo there. We already said that he's charismatic, he's ambitious, he's cynical. Now, let's look at the setting of the story. The setting of the story is the time and place in which it occurs. It includes the physical location, historical period, and cultural context. That is the greater setting of the story. Listen to me carefully, young children, young learners. We are talking of the setting of the story and the setting of the extract. The setting of the story is the story takes place where? In two areas, in the Cheney as well as in Johannesburg and in prison. That is the bigger setting. Or rather in South Africa in the 1940s during racial segregation. That's the bigger setting. Then we have specific setting, which refers to what? The extract that is in the passage. The passage takes place is in the rural village of Ndocheni in Natal, or the reference in Johannesburg, or even in prison. So it depends on the extract. So we have figures of speech as well. Figures of speech, it had been in many hands, no doubt. The letter is given human-like qualities, emphasizing its journey and the many people who have handled it. And what is the relevance? We will be asking you the relevance of the figures of speech. We know that you can identify figures of speech, but we want you to learn the relevance. Why is that figure of speech used? Let's look at a metaphor. Metaphor is comparison, isn't it? You know that? But let's read this. When such a thing is opened, it cannot be shut again. The letter now is compared to what? To a door. If one such thing is opened, it cannot be shut again. So the letter is compared to what? To a door, symbolizing the irreversible nature of receiving news. When you open the letter, you cannot shut it again. When you open the door, you cannot shut it again. And then the relevance is that the metaphor underscores the gravity of the situation and the potential impact of the letter's contents. The content of the letter can speed up the process or the narrative in a story. When we speak of irony, we're talking of a situation in the irony. We all know irony means when you say one thing, whilst you mean the other, right? Stephen Kumalo and his wife, they longed to hear from their loved ones. Now, day in and day out, they wanted news from Johannesburg about their loved ones. But when it arrives, now the letter arrives, what do they do now? They are afraid to open it. They are afraid. They fear to open the letter. What is the relevance of this irony? It highlights the complex emotions of hope and fear that the characters are experiencing, reflecting on the broader uncertainties in their lives. When we deal with themes, boys and girls, we use a method called the pill method. With the pill method, we give a point, we give evidence, we explain, and we link. P-E-E-L, pill. Let's look at the relevance of the pill in the story. If we have a theme called separation and longing, At the beginning of the story, Stephen Khumalo and his wife long or desire that their loved ones can come back. They've been separated. His only child, how do you do it now? You name the theme, you make a point. You say the theme of separation and longing is evident in the extract. Evidence, how do we know that? Stephen Khumalo's only child, Absalom, had gone there to look for his aunt Gertrude and never returned. Gertrude left first to look for her husband and she never returned. Who followed? Absalom also went to Johannesburg to look for his aunt Gertrude and he never returned. Explanation now. This line illustrates the physical separation, right? And emotional distance between Khumalo and his family members. And that emphasizes what? The pain of separation. When we are separated from our loved ones, we feel the pain, isn't it? We've given the reasons why there is separation. Absalom left to look for the aunt left to look for the husband. The nephew left to look for the aunt. Did they come home? No. They left the parents at home. They left Absalom's parents at home. They left Gertrude's brother and sister-in-law back home. And these people at home suffers from what? Physical separation and longing and emotional distance. This theme, now we're linking it back to our heading there. It's central to the novel as it explores the impact of what? Urbanization, migration, on what? On family bonds, that families are separated. Gertrude's husband went to Johannesburg to look for a job, never returned. Because of what? Migration. Then everybody now went to look for him. Let's look at the discussion here. In your book, the first chapter, I think is the second chapter. Khumalo, look at his letter. We are reading together, isn't it? Khumalo looked at his letter. It was dirty, especially about the stamp. It had been in many hands, no doubt. It came from Johannesburg. Now there in Johannesburg were many of his own people. His brother John, who was a carpenter, had gone there and had a business of his own in Sophia town, Johannesburg. His sister, Gertrude, 25 years younger than he. Who's the he here? He is Stephen Khumalo. And the child of his parents. And had gone there with her small son to look for the husband who had never come back from the mines. Gertrude's husband went to work in the mines and never returned. His only child, Absalom, had gone there to look for his aunt Gertrude, and he never returned. Let's discuss this. Describe the setting of this extract. The setting is where? It is in Khumalo's home, right? Khumalo's home. He receives what? The letter. That's the setting there. How do we know that? Khumalo looked at his letter. It was dirty, especially about the stamp. He receives the letter when he was at home. What does this letter reveal about the lifestyle of the people who live in the country? There is some form of lifestyle. How did the letter come to Stephen Khumalo's home? It was given to the little girl, isn't it? It arrived first where? At the shop. Then they gave the letter to who? To the girl. The little girl ran all the way to where? To Stephen Khumalo's home to deliver it. How do we know that? It had been in many hands. Can you see? It was touched by one person who moved it and gave it to the second person, to the third person. Probably the little girl's mother was at the shop and she received the letter, and the letter went through so many hands. You can even see that it was already dirty due to what? To the letter being handled by a lot of people. That's answering the lifestyle of the people who live in the country. That letter there, the stamp. The stamp, how do we know? The stamp will tell us where the letter is from Johannesburg. Before you open the letter, you already assume that it could be from one of the relatives. And let's see, every one of them in Khumalo's household, they are afraid to touch or to open. They can touch the letter, but they are afraid to do what? To open the letter. It is like a Pandora box. They are afraid to open the letter because if you open it, you cannot do what? You cannot shut it back. Remember the figure of speech there? The figure of speech of metaphor that they are comparing the letter to some bad action that is going to happen to them. Let's look at the tone of the characters in the letter. The tone is the character's attitude or emotional state as conveyed through dialect, thoughts, and actions. For example, a character might speak in a happy, sad, angry, or sarcastic tone. So let's read the extract together so that we can determine the tone. Right. And indeed, many other relatives were there, though none so near as these. It was hard to say from who this letter came, for it was long since any of these had written that one did not well remember their writing. When you take a book in your class and you it doesn't have a name, but when you open it, immediately you can make out who this book belongs to. Why? We know each other's handwriting. So it has been such a long time that they did not write. So Stephen Khumalo did not even remember their handwriting. He turned the letter over, but there was nothing to show from whom it came. So that is on page 4 of your book. He was reluctant to open it, for once such a thing is opened, it cannot be shut again. And that is a symbol of what? Of a Pandora box. He called to his wife. Has the child gone? The wife answered, she's eating, Stephen. Let her eat then. She brought a letter. Do you know anything about a letter? That Stephen asking. And the wife says, how should I know, Stephen? She, not that I do not know. Look at it. She took the letter and she felt it. She touched it. She wanted to use that touch to check whether she will make out who the letter is from. But there was nothing in the touch of it to tell from whom it might be. She read out the address slowly and carefully, that you read on page 3 to 4. Let's discuss this. What tone would Stephen Khumalo use in this line? And why would Stephen Khumalo use this tone in this line? Do you know anything about the letter? His tone is cautious and anxious, reflecting his fear of bad news. He doesn't want to hear bad news. So what is his character now? The tone would even add on to his character. Let's go on and see. We see that tone of concern. And then what about his wife? Can you state the difference in attitude of Stephen Khumalo and Mrs. Khumalo? What does this extract reveal about the character of Stephen and Mrs. Khumalo? Stephen Khumalo is cautious and anxious. He's very careful and he is afraid of bad news. The wife touches the letter. She opens it. She's also very anxious but more hopeful as she tries to muster the courage to open the letter. Can you see the difference? The husband is cautious and anxious only, but the wife is more brave than the husband. Now let's look at this type of question that you will get in your exams about characters. We've done characters this afternoon, isn't it? I want you to take 1 minute to choose a description from column B that matches the name in column A. And then you can write it on your script or on your paper back home. Write the letter A to E and next to it numbers 1.1.1A to 1.1D. I want you to match this. Reverend Msimang, Arthur Jarvis, Absalom Kumal, Father Vincent. Becomes a head boy of the reformatory, accompanies Stephen to his brother's shop, favors Barbara Smith above other nurses, writes the truth about native crime, finds Stephen a prodigal lawyer. 2 minutes. Work out the answers. Okay, I now you have answered the activity. Let's see the solutions. Let's see how excellent you are. Reverend Msimang, did you all get B? Yes, it is B. Accompany Stephen to his brother's shop. Arthur Jarvis, what did he do? That's D. He writes the truth about native crime. That's correct. To me, Absalom Kumalo, A, becomes the head boy of the reformatory. Correct, Kanye. You got it right. D, Father Vincent. The correct answer is E. Finds Stephen a pro Dio lawyer. That's correct, Bonso. The odd answer is number C. Favors Barbara Smith about other nurses, and that is not the correct answer. Now I'm going to give you 1 minute to work out the answers. For this, change one word to make the following statement true. John Kumalo is a carpenter who turned pastor. Refer to line 7. How should I know, Stephen? What tone would Mrs. Kumalo use in this line? B. Why would Mrs. Kumalo use this tone in this line? Explain why Stephen sighs in line 16. 1 minute. Okay. Have you changed one word to make the statement true? Yes. The pastor changes to what? Politician. Pastor changes to politician and you get your mark. What tone would Mrs. Kumalo use in this line? Confused. How should I know, Stephen? How does she sound? Confused, questioning, inquiring, isn't it? Did you get it right? Brilliant. Why would Mrs. Kumalo use this tone in this line? Mrs. Kumalo feels as baffled or unknowing as her husband about the letter. She doesn't know who the letter is from, isn't it? So it is strange that Kumalo is asking her why, how, or where is the letter from by just looking at it. Explain why Stephen sighs in line 16. Stephen is despondent. He is not happy that the letter is not from Absalom. He hoped that the letter would be from Absalom, who hasn't communicated with them after he has left. He's disappointed, isn't it? That side shows that he had hoped that the letter would be from his son, but it wasn't. And they haven't heard from him in a long time. Let's proceed. The next question that I want you to work out is explain the irony in Stephen's words. Who is afraid? Remember the wife said to him, "How would I know?" Now he says, who is afraid? What do lines 25 to 27, she opened it, reveal about Mrs. Khumalo's character? Substantiate your answer. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to pause for a minute.
Do you know that you are different? Do you know that your fingerprint is different? It's different from your peers, from the people that you are studying with. So do not compare yourself with your peers. Do not compare your results with what they're getting, because you are different. You have your own talents and skills, and also you have your own gifts. Embrace what you can do. Always put in the work to make sure that your results become better than what they were yesterday. But do not compare yourself, because when you compare yourself, you do not know what another person has, and they do not have what you have. So believe in yourself. You are different, and keep on putting the work.
Explain the irony in Stephen's words. Who is afraid? Stephen pretends that he is not afraid to open the letter, yet he avoids opening it and instructs his wife to do that. We all know that he's afraid, isn't it? But he pretends that he's brave and say, who is afraid? That he is not afraid to open the letter yet, but he avoids to open it. What do lines 25 to 27 reveal about Mrs. Khumalo's character? Substantiate your answer. Mrs. Khumalo is a brave and courageous woman, isn't it? She opens the letter even though she doesn't know who the sender is and does not read often. She's also a very sensitive woman, isn't it? She realizes that her husband is reluctant or even afraid to open the letter. And then what does she do now? She softens the impact of the letter by reading slowly. So we have character traits there of a woman who is courageous and brave, who opens the letter, and at the same time, very sensitive, that she does not want to offend the husband. She does it in such a way that she is not ridiculing the husband. I want us to look further for this activity. Explain what the letter encourages Stephen to do. And I want you to tell me whether you feel sorry for Gertrude. Can you discuss that? I'm also going to give you 1 minute to discuss that. Explain what the letter encourages Stephen to do. Did you get it right? Yes, of course. The letter encourages Stephen to use their savings. Not only use their savings, but to go to Johannesburg to find Gertrude, who is not well. So he uses up what they had in the house, and he goes to Johannesburg to find Gertrude. The letter encourages Stephen to pack up and and go to Johannesburg. Do you feel sorry for Gertrude? Gertrude's husband, if you say yes, I can see Temba there agrees. Gertrude's husband goes to Johannesburg and she does not hear from him again. So I feel sorry for him. Bali, are you also in agreement? Yes, she is left with an infant and has to care for him on her own. So I feel pity for Gertrude. I feel pity for Gertrude. I feel sorry for Gertrude because she loses hope and is drawn into the social ills that prevail in the big city like Johannesburg. Tom is jumping around there and say, I don't feel sorry for her. No, I don't. Gertrude, I don't feel sorry for Gertrude because she should have returned to Ndocheni when she did not find her husband. Maggie, I hear you. She has the support of her brother and his wife in Ndocheni. Why didn't she go home? Cynthia says, I am not feeling sorry for this Gertrude. She makes the choice to live an immoral life. And all these are grounded where? In the text. If you answer in this way, your answer will earn you 3 marks. Whether you say yes or we say no, you have to do what? Convince us. Convince your teacher, convince me that you know your story. But we don't want you to write yes or no. We are not going to give you marks. We want you to write yes or no, but we are not going to give you marks for yes or no. But if you use the pill method, you give us your point, you give evidence from the text, and you explain it, and then you link back to the story, we are certainly going to award you 3 marks. Now it's time for homework, boys and girls. Grade 12 learners. It will not be a full lesson if you don't get something to do as homework. I want you to read the extract with me, where James Jarvis is in mourning. He looked at the hundreds of chairs and slid aside the glass panel and took one of them out. Then he returned to his chair and began to turn over its pages. One of the chapters was headed "The Famous Speech at Gatsby." Apparently, a speech that was a failure, but that had since become one of the great speeches of the world. He turned over the preliminary pages till he came to the speech and read it through carefully. That done reading, he smoked again, lost in deep abstraction. After some time, he rose and replaced the book in the case and shut the case. Then he opened the case again and slipped the book into his pocket and shut the case. Then he opened the case again and slipped the book into his pocket and shut the case. He looked at his watch, knocked out his pipe in the fireplace, put on his hat, took up his stick. He walked slowly down the stairs and opened the door into the fatal passage. He took off his hat and looked down at the dark stain on the floor. Unasked, unwanted, the picture of the small boy came to his mind. The small boy at High Place, the small boy with the wooden guns. And seeing, he walked along the passage and out of the door through which death had come so suddenly. This you find in Book 2, Chapter 3. The questions: describe the time and place where this extract is set. Refer to lines 8 to 9. Then he opened and shut the case. Why did James Jarvis slip the book into his pocket? Remember, he put the book in his pocket. Now, I want you to look at the dark stain there. What does it mean? What does it refer to? Does it refer to paint? The dark stain refers to paint or to blood, to sweat, or to polish? That you have to answer. You would now read and go back to lines 12 to 14. You read where it starts with unasked, unwanted, and you end up where the wooden guns. After you have read these lines 12 to 14, you have to answer this. What do these lines tell us about Jarvis's state of mind, and substantiate your answer? Remember, when we say substantiate your answer, we want you to give us proof from the text. How does the small boy, line 14, contribute to the upliftment of the Black community when he becomes an adult? That we want to know. How many points do we want? 2 points. You follow instructions to the dot. The next question, you go to lines 14 to 15. You read, and seeing he walked up until you read come so suddenly, you identify the figure of speech used there, and you explain why the figure of speech is relevant. Then you need to tell us why? You need to discuss the theme of regret in Cry the Beloved Country. There is a lot of regret going on, and we want you to explain to us or discuss the theme. Lastly, I want you to give us your opinion and discuss your view about Absalom, that Absalom is responsible for the poor choices he makes. You discuss your view. You give us whether you agree with that point or you do not agree. What have we discussed this afternoon? The journey of Stephen Kumalo and his family, his missing family members, and the social issues highlighted by his son's criminal acts. We have studied the key characters. We know who Stephen Kumalo is. We know what a protagonist is. We have studied James Jabez, Absalom Kumalo, the troubled son, and also John Kumalo's brother, the ambitious brother, and our ever-kind, supportive Theophilus Msimang, the young priest, and the struggling sister, the sick sister, Gertrude Kumalo. We've also examined the overall tone of Cry the Beloved Country, which is very sad, which is very somber and reflective. We have also touched on the figures of speech, the personification, the journey of the letter that is taken from one hand to the other, and the metaphor of people receiving letters, and that Pandora box that I have discussed. We have also covered the theme of separation and longing, racial injustice, family and reconciliation, and we have used the we have discussed open-ended questions using the Peel method. And as we did that, critical thinking is needed. So, next week, learners, on the 24th of March, same time, 2 o'clock to 3:30, be ready for another exciting English file lesson on creative writing, how to improve your essay mark. Remember, literature not only tells a story, but also offers us insights into different perspectives and experiences. Keep reflecting on these themes and how they relate to the world around us. If you have any further questions or thoughts, feel free to share those questions with your teachers. Great job, everyone. See you next time. The 24th March is the date, creative writing. Thank you.